Greetings, folks. I just got done editing this video and I noticed that I missed the opportunity to tell an important story and give a little bit of advice as far as this kind of job goes. So, for the duration that I've owned this KLR, anytime that I have worked on the brakes for it, I've been very apprehensive, and that has been because of a story that I heard from one of my fellow mechanics from a place that I worked at a while ago, where they were working on an old Kawasaki 1200 street bike, I want to say. I forget the exact model of it, but it was this old guy, and he was test riding the bike after one of his fellow mechanics had rebuilt the brakes or worked on the brakes in some fashion. I didn't hear too many specifics about what the job and the issue actually entailed, but he was test riding this bike, and he got like a little bit down the road, maybe like half a mile, 3/4 of a mile or something like that, and all of a sudden the brakes locked and the front wheel locked up, and he just went straight over the bars. I don't even think he was wearing a helmet, and he was like decently old, like 60s, 70s, and I don't know how he didn't get more hurt, but that has always haunted me. I don't even think they really knew what went wrong, and I've always been like, okay, if I do any little thing on a brake job incorrectly, then this is a possibility, so it's haunted me. And I recently read this post on Reddit that I might include in the description, where a guy was talking about how he rebuilt his caliper, and he was rebuilding a bike and then was going to rebuild the caliper but had not yet. And I'm not going to get the specifics of this exactly right. You're going to have to go read the story for yourself, but it happened where I think one of the pads was rubbing against the disc, and it was only one of the pads, and it wasn't rubbing on it enough to be noticeable while he was riding. And so as it was rubbing, it was heating up and heating up and heating up, and then all of a sudden at some point down the road, it pretty much just got way too hot and fused to the disc, or just expanded enough to where it like locked the front wheel, and the same thing happened. Flew over the bars. This guy was wearing a helmet, so he was okay. But yeah, so I think that was probably the issue that happened with my friend a while ago. I think it was probably a bad seal, or a bad piston or something like that. I still don't even really know, but all of that is to say, if you are not completely comfortable doing this sort of brake job on your own, if you have any apprehensions at all, don't do this yourself. Just bring it to a mechanic and have them do this job for you. It's very dangerous if you get it wrong. I finished this installation about a week and a half ago, and very gradually built up my speed over a number of days, where I think I broke in the brakes like the next day, and I just went to a parking lot and was just going like 20 miles an hour, laying on them again and again, repeated. And they still didn't feel like they had too much pressure in them. So over the next couple days after that, I continued bleeding the brakes even more, And then after I was happy with the level of pressure in the system, I would just go on progressively faster roads. So I started on 20-mile-per-hour roads. I live on next to a campus, so I was just able to go through very slow roads in campus. And then I would go on like 25-mile-an-hour roads, then 35, et cetera, and just progressively built up my comfort with the system. So that's how I went about doing this. So yeah, if you have any apprehensions at all, bring it to a mechanic, have them do it. It's going to be worth the extra money. I was feeling a little adventurous, so, and I am confident. I worked at a scooter shop for about a year, and I did some shifts at a MX and ATV shop during that time. So I've got some experience with braking systems. I'm not totally inexperienced with all this. I'm not a professional motorcycle mechanic. I'm not certified, but I have done a decent amount of work on all this sort of stuff, so I was comfortable with it. And I think that's about all I want to say. Enjoy the video, and good luck if you're choosing to do this yourself. Toodaloo. Greetings, folks. You joined me out here for another motorcycle upgrade, and this is a legit upgrade that we've got going here. We are going to be addressing the front brake system on my KLR650 today. We are doing a lot with it too. We are going to be doing the works. We are doing the oversized rotor. We're doing a new caliper. The stock caliper that comes on these Gen-1 KLRs, it only has a single cylinder that it uses to depress the brakes, and that is just not enough force, especially with this small rotor, to stop this 550, 600 pound machine. You know, it is just not enough. So there is a modification that some people do to these bikes where they take the front brake caliper of an SV650, a Suzuki SV650, and they put it on the KLR. And the SV650 caliper, it's got 2 pistons, so it can apply much more pressure across a larger area. We've also got a steel braided front brake line that we are going to be fitting, and I'm not going to be doing the master cylinder today. I was doing a lot of research about whether you should get a aftermarket master cylinder when you're doing this whole revamp, and a few people that I saw said that they had done the same job and that the stock master cylinder works fine for that. I'm not too sure about that. I've also wanted a master cylinder because a new one, because the current one it's like fused to the there you go, it's like fused to the handle, the brake handle, and when I'm on the bike, my elbows are low, so my arms sort of like go up a little bit when I'm like sitting relaxed on the bike, and so I need my brake handle to be sort of like tilted up so that I can just like sort of straight pull back the handle. And when I do that, the master cylinder like tilts back. And if I do it much more, which I would like to tilt it up like even more. This would just be like almost sideways, you know, and that is just not safe. The fluid's not going down at the correct pressure, I would imagine, or something like that. So I may get one for that purpose. I may keep this because I've been running it like that for a while and it's been fine. But yeah, people said it works fine with this. I'm gonna try it, I'll test it, and if it doesn't work as well as I'd like it to, then I will worry about changing it then. But it's gonna be a long job. We are going to be cleaning that new caliper that I bought as well, the SV650 caliper, just to see what it's actually all about. I got it used off eBay, so we'll be cleaning it. And I think that's about that. I'm also spray painting my front forks. These guys. I'm gonna be spray painting them black just because I think that'll look kind of cool. And because I would like to spray paint most of my girls' components black in the near future. I think that'd look really cool. So I'll start with the forks today, but I think that's about that. So let's get into the tools. Let's do a walkthrough of all the tools I think that you'll need. There's a lot of them required for these jobs, and so I might have missed some, so we'll cover them along the way. So here you go. Here's a full shot of everything you need. We have got a jack to start out with. You're going to need to get the front wheel off the ground. I already went ahead and took out the cotter pin over on the other side of the axle there. This guy specifically. I wanted to see what size socket you would need on the castle nut, but I figured out a cool little trick that you can do with those cotter pins if they're being finicky and getting all bent out of shape and stuff. So what I did is I took a pair of needle nose, but you could probably use any kind of plier, and I sort of, it'll be hard to do this one-handed, but I got the cotter pin in at the very edge, sort of like that, so that this is gonna be challenging. But I got them in like this, right? And then I used this hammer and I just sort of hammered on this side and let that sort of force the cotter pin past its bends and stuff, and it got it all the way out of the castle nut. So that was a neat little trick. I hope that made sense, that explanation right there. It was very improvisational. Anyway, we've got a new cotter pin for when I put it back. We have got brake cleaner. We've got brake fluid. Let's just make that focus. We've got brake fluid .4. I think it says you can also use .3 maybe. I don't know. I'm using .4. Just use .4. Also, I'm not a mechanic. Please don't take my advice. Anyway, we've also got axe grease. We've got our steel braided brake line. Now, one of the people that I watched, one of the YouTube videos that I will throw in the description, mentioned that the steel braided line helps with braking power. So just that alone would increase the ability for this bike to slow down. I don't know how true that is. I don't really know why that would be the case, other than maybe like a little less friction or something like that, but that doesn't even make sense because it's fluid. Maybe it does, I don't know. But I got it just because at some point in the near future I'd like to do some adventure riding, and the steel braided line is less likely to tear, like if you go through a branch or something. What else do we got? We've got a long extendable ratchet so that we can break the castle nut free. I would have gotten my breaker bar, but I forgot it and it's upstairs, so I'm just gonna try with that. That extends quite a bit. I've also got a 22mm socket for the castle nut. I've got a 17mm wrench. Could also use a 17mm socket for the other end of the axle right there. I've got a 20 to 100 pound torque wrench for torquing down both the castle nut at the very end and the rotor bolts. I've got a Phillips head screwdriver. I've got an 8mm wrench for bleeding the brake system. I've got a small ratchet. We've got a 10mm socket and a 12mm socket, H6 socket as well. We've got some red thread locker, and I actually just learned the difference between red and blue thread locker, and it seems that this red thread locker is much higher strength than I need, at least for most of the jobs that I've been doing. Apparently red thread locker Loctite is like sort of permanent marker, and then the blue Loctite is sort of like pencil. Like it's much easier to break blue Loctite. So if you're doing stuff that's removable like these discs, it's recommended that you do blue thread locker. I don't have that. I don't want to go to the store right now, so I'm just going to use red, and we will see how hard it is to break when we go to change this rotor way on down the line. Next up, we've got our Suzuki SV650 left front brake caliper. This one already had some pads in it, and they look slightly worn maybe. I think these little notches are the wear markers, and this is a little dirty. See all this schmutz and stuff? That's another reason why I wanted to clean it. We've also got the SV650 caliper adapter that goes right around there on right around there on one of the forks. And I think if you're going to be using the oversized 320mm rotor, you're gonna need a caliper adapter regardless of whether you do get the 650 or SV650 caliper or not. I think you'd need one just for the stock caliper, but I'm not totally sure about that. These bolts just came with this thing. This came from eaglemike.com. I'll link that below. So did that rotor and the brake line. Okay, and so for this cleaning, I've got a toothbrush and a nice decorative bottle of water with dish soap. I've also got a parts tray and some gloves. I imagine that those are going to be very useful for this job. I've also got a basin. The basin is going to be useful for bleeding the brake system. And I think I may bleed the rear brakes as well, and I'll probably get that on video. Finally, we've got some shop rags. Whew. A lot of stuff here. It is about 4 o'clock, and I am hoping that this does not go until 11 p.m. like it did yesterday. Okay, I've got all the stuff for my caliper cleaning, and what I've done already is taken out all 4 of these bolts, this main one. Make sure to keep track of both of these washers. There's another washer right there. Those are very important. I've also got this bleeder valve out. These are the 2 bolts that hold the caliper on. They've got some old blue Loctite on there. Maybe I will go get some, or maybe I will wait to put, I don't know. Maybe I will go get some, who knows. Also got this little rubber thing off. Next up, it looks like we are going to be taking the pads out, and so that would entail taking out this middle one right here, and then slipping them both off. I've heard to get these out, it can sometimes be tough. It looks like the top pistons of my caliper are already down, so that would just be pushing this pad up and then pushing this pad and taking it out. But we've got to take out this center thing first because it holds them on. Just got the pads out. It's a good practice to put the pads in the same way that you took them out. So I'm just remembering, I put them down here. They look pretty good. They've still got some life in them. But I'm just putting them down like that, and I'm remembering they can slot in there, just like that, with the Tokico facing this way. And we've got the caliper split. I've got these 4 bolts lined up in the order they came out, just to make sure I get them back in the same place they came from. Got that little gold plate out. These were H3. And then I've got the caliper split. So I decided I'm at least gonna take the pistons out. I may take the seals out as well, and then like take a brake cleaner to the whole thing. But if I'm not confident enough to do that, I'm going to just take my soapy water and my toothbrush and brush everything, including the seals. You don't want to get brake cleaner on the seals. The brake cleaner just dries everything out and it'll make the seal irrelevant. Also, I forgot to mention, this O-ring goes right here, and you do not want to lose that if you are doing this. So, to get these pistons out, I will be taking a rag, and maybe even a bigger rag, and I will be taking a pair of needle nose pliers, and I will be putting the rag over the piston and then grabbing the piston through the rag. The pistons are fragile. You do not want to scratch them, and so be careful. Just got all those pistons out, and I did want to note that they would not come out with the needle nose pliers, so I just got a pair of regular pliers, and I sort of tucked them in this big towel here. And a couple were a bit of a challenge to get out, so at some points I double tucked the blanket to give even more of a cushion for the pliers, and they seem to have come out pretty well. I think I did make a ding on one of these. I don't know where. I think that's some dirt and stuff right there. I think maybe that's it. I made a ding on the rim, but that's just the part that pushes on the pad, so it shouldn't be too big an issue. And it was just a tiny little dink. So I was taking a look at the seals, and they appear to be in decent shape. These are calipers. These are a caliper. This is a caliper off of a Gen-1 SV650. So it's not too old. It's just a few years at most. So I'm gonna pop the seals out and just wipe the dirt off of them, and then yeah, I'll take some brake cleaner to both these and get them squeaky clean. Let's do it. All right, I got all those seals out, and I just made sure to place them in the correct order. For each of these, there is a thin seal that goes on top and a thicker seal that goes inside.
and I made sure to keep them each with their respective piston. Next, we're taking our calipers and we're taking some brake cleaner to them. Now, yeah, I think I'll use brake cleaner. We won't need to use the soapy water because I've taken the seals out, and that would just sort of be redundant. So brake cleaner it is. We're going heavy duty. I'll probably use a mixture of a toothbrush and a piece of paper towel or something, piece of shop towel. Okay, let's do it. Let's get these things looking new. It should be fun. Oh, I also did want to mention the tool that I used to take those seals out was just a little hook. Just like that. I got mine at Walmart. Alright, let's do it. Look at those little beauties. Look at how much cleaner that is. Couldn't get it all off. There's still some little bits here and there, but got all or most of that schmutz off of the outside, and we got all the dirt and stuff out of the inside. All those channels are cleared, and I am going to now replace all the seals. I made sure to clean them. I didn't clean them a lot. I didn't clean the bottom seals, and I only just like barely wiped off the top to get like the biggest dirt off of them. I don't know how much I am able to play with these. I think they will get re-lubricated with brake fluid, so I don't think I have to oil them putting them in. I may look that up though. And I think I'm also going to put some links to new seals in the description just so that you guys can do as I say and not as I do, so to speak. Okay. Again, I'm not a mechanic. Don't follow my advice. But we're getting to these seals. And then I'm going to wipe off these pistons. I don't want to do anything too abrasive with these, again, because you don't want to scratch these at all. So I'm just going to wipe those off very gently and then replace them, I think. But yeah, I'm going to look up how to do this exactly just so I don't mess anything up. Okay. Also, just forgot to mention, I put on a pair of safety glasses while spraying everything with the brake cleaner, just because brake cleaner is such a violent cleaner. You do not want to get it on skin, and most definitely not in eyes. So good gloves, eye protection, very important for that. I'm just going through and cleaning these right now, but I just wanted to show you some of these are so caked. But I also wanted to say this is where my toothbrush and soapy water came in, because that is fine for these very, very touchy pistons. So soapy water cleans them. I also saw that very fine steel wool is good. Okay, we're nearly done with the cleaning. I've got the pistons all cleaned. Now a few of them are a bit rusty, and I did sort of score them up a little bit when I was trying to take them out. So I don't know if those are too rusty or if those are adequate, but I think pretty soon down the line I'm probably just gonna order some new pistons and seals, so that I don't have to worry about if I place these in slightly wrong or something. On the reference video that I'm watching from Motorcyclist Magazine, the guy mentioned that when you're taking your seals out, you want to like run your finger without a glove on over the seal, and that you'd feel like a tall bit and a less tall bit, and that the tall bit like seals in some oil and stuff. I don't really feel what he's talking about. I did not try it when I was taking them out. I just saw it when I was watching it after having cleaned everything. I don't really know what he's talking about. These feel like they're the same height all the way around. So yeah, I don't know if the SV650 seals are slightly different or something, but yeah, soon I'm probably just gonna get some new seals and pistons, and maybe just like a rebuild kit or something, and then maybe I'll get some new pads and I'll just do a rebuild of the carb proper. But next we're going to be putting the pistons into the calipers, and you want to make sure to lube both the seals and the pistons with brake fluid before putting them in. Sort of run some fluid around the outside of the pistons, lube the seals up with brake fluid before they go in, and then we'll be putting in each of these 4 bolts in order. I don't know what I'm torquing them to yet, I'll look that up. Then I'll be putting this plate back on with those H3 bolts, and then I've got that little O-ring. Oh yeah, I'll make sure to lube up the O-ring, put that in place right here before folding these together and putting the bolts in. All right, yeah, so then we're doing the O-ring, doing the plate. This little rubber thing goes on the bleed valve, and then yeah, we've got these 2 holder bolts, and that is the, I forget what that's called, banjo valve or banjo bolt, and that actually that goes on the line, so the line will go between those 2 washers. I think I'm getting a little too ahead of myself though. I'm just gonna put those pistons in, get this all buttoned back together, and I'll tell you guys if I run into any hang-ups. Just running into a couple problems putting this back together. I got all the pistons in, got the pin through the pads, and then I went to tighten down these 4 bolts, and I think I was coming decently close to stripping them. I threw the T40 bit onto my torque wrench and tried to torque them down to 50 foot-pounds, I think it was, and the torque bit was just beginning to eat into the metal. So I torqued them until I couldn't really spin them easily anymore, and then stopped. Because I'm going to be doing the seal and piston rebuild to that soon, I am going to look around to see if these bolts are a different torques measurement, and then get the bit specific for those. And then when I put everything back together next time that I deal with this, I'll go ahead and I'll put some thread locker on each of these bolts. Next, I will be replacing, oh my gosh, embarrassing. I forgot the freaking O-ring, so I gotta go ahead and take all 4 of these bolts out again anyway, along with those 2 and the plate, so yeah. Okay, I will rejoin you when I finish all that. Okay, we got it all back together. I ended up trying to torque these to 35 this time. They did not hit it either. As you can see there, I just barely started to actually strip that one. Yeah, the torque wrench did not register at 35, so they're under that, probably 25 or 30-ish. It was probably good that I did miss this O-ring. When I did try to loosen these again, they were even more difficult to loosen than when I first took them out. So whatever I torqued them to is probably as much or more than they were originally. So they're definitely not coming undone. But next, we move ourselves over here to the meat of the issue. We're going to be starting with our castle nut and our axle, and we're going to be taking the front wheel off. let's do it. Just realized I was doing a bunch of stuff and not filming it. So I got the wheel off. I got the bolts out of the brake disc, sitting in my parts tray over here. These were all H6, and then, as I said at the beginning, the one side of the axle, front axle, is 17 mil, the other side is 22 mil. And I just took a 17 mil wrench, put it on that side, and took a long ratchet. Breaker bar would have been better. I had had some trouble with it, but I had a long ratchet and it worked. 22 mil on that long ratchet. And that is also where I took the cotter pin out at the very beginning of the video. So yes, we will be taking the rotor off. Look at that old thing. 24-year-old piece of metal right there. I'm going to be feeling much safer with this wonderful little piece of technology. Look at how much bigger that is. Oh boy, that looks good. All right, as I laid it down, we're gonna be putting this on with this white lettering facing up and with these little indents facing up. Okay, now time to put a tiny little bit of that red thread locker on each of our bolts, and then get them all torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. I want to say, I will double check that number, but I think it's 20, and that is an H6 socket that they're all getting. Let's do it. Okay, we just got all our rotor bolts in. Got just a single tiny drop of thread locker, red thread locker on each of them. I torqued them all down to 20 foot-pounds, but the internet said 16.5 foot-pounds is better. I don't have a torque wrench that goes down that low, so I figured 20 is okay. And make sure to tighten these in a star pattern, so you go boom, 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 and so on, so that the rotor tightens down uniformly and does not warp at all. But yeah, look at that. It's looking nice. So next, I think I may deal with taking off my old caliper and the hose connecting it. And I might also deal with or take the speedometer cable away a little bit, because I do want to spray paint these forks. So I think I might do that now. I'm not gonna include that in the video, but you will see the forks turn from silver to black. Maybe I'll put in a fun little edit right there, maybe I won't. All right, I'm not gonna do that fancy edit because I've got more to say. I'm going to be taking a 12 mil socket to this banjo bolt right here, and hopefully that should allow the brake fluid to drain into my basin here. And if it doesn't, I will, well, regardless of whether it does or doesn't, I will loosen this one and these two Phillips right here for the master cylinder. So I just got the front brake caliper off, and as you can see, I had to cut the line. I was having some trouble with this banjo bolt. It was on there super tight, and there was very little I could do. Well, I probably could have bolted it back on and then wrenched on it, but yeah, I unbolted it and then was just trying to loosen it in the air. Regardless, I'm not using either of these. I also wanted to mention that this banjo bolt is a 10 mil. At the beginning I said it was an 8 mil. Actually, no, that's I misspoke again. That's a 12 mil, the banjo bolt is, but the bleeder valve, I think I took it out, sitting right there. That was a 10 mil, not an 8. On to the next. Excuse me again. It's getting kind of dark out. I had to break out my headlamp again tonight. It's about 8 o'clock. I imagine we're probably going to be out here till about 9:30 or 10, especially with cleanup and everything. But I just wanted to show you guys this. Look at this. I threw some of this, whatever it is, Rust-Oleum high heat black spray paint on, and it just looks wonderful. This is only one coat, not even dry yet. Got a little drip right there, but yeah, that looks wonderful. I love the sort of the matte look of it. That looks awesome, and it's gonna look beautiful on my frickin' frame. That's what I want to do eventually, is I want to take my frame, spray paint it black, swing arm, passenger pegs. I'd like to do the engine too. That'd be really, really cool. Like pretty much all components inside getting black. And then I kind of want to do like a white plastics. That'd look really, really nice. Down the line, I'd love to get some new rims, possibly some Supermoto 17s, 17 in the front, 17 in the back, but I don't know if I'm gonna like, I've got some dirt tires, so I'm gonna start adventure riding soon, so if I enjoy that, maybe I'll go for a larger front, like a 19 or maybe another 21, but I'm getting new rims soon, and I'd like to get some black rims and maybe some purple hubs to match my dashboard lights. That'd look kind of cool. I'm just waiting for this to dry right now. Oh, and I forgot the reason I started recording. So while that's drying and while I'm adding 2 more coats, I'm going to remove the screws out of here and just get any remaining fluid out of the master cylinder. I took the line off, the brake line. I can't remember if I filmed that, but I threw the bolt in there in my parts tray. You want to save that, especially the washers on both sides of it. And it was a bit of a challenge getting it up through everything. I think there was like a 10 mil bolt holding on a little pinch thing right here. Right there, the line went through right there, and then there was like a little thing that pinched it on. But yeah, so I'm gonna take this off, gonna throw a couple coats on these. Let's do it. Just finished cleaning the master cylinder out. I just took the screws out and then put a paper towel down there to dab up whatever was left in the cylinder. I did spill some, but whatever, I'm getting some new plastic soon anyway. It's okay. If you're doing this and you don't want to replace your plastics, I would recommend putting a towel down. I just forgot to. I also moved down my throttle housing. It used to be sticking up like that, this little bit right here, and it would always bend my windscreen when I would move the bars to the side and try to lock my handlebars. So got those sort of fed down beneath the master cylinder, which was a little tough. I had to take the master cylinder off first and then fed them down, but my baby's looking good. Look at those black forks. It's awesome. Next, I think I'm going to prepare the brake system to have fluid put in. So I'm going to install my new brake line. I'll take that banjo bolt that I saved from the cylinder. Actually, I don't know, this line came with some equipment, so maybe it's got one in it, but yeah, I'm gonna install my line, feed it down, and it gets fed through this. It goes from the master cylinder. It attaches to the handlebars with those two clips right there, and then it gets fed down through this hole, and then it attaches at that clip that I was talking about. I think it's down there, and then it gets fed down and is clipped right here to that one sitting right there, and then will eventually go to the caliper, which I will attach as well. And I'll fix that little adapter plate onto it as well and show you guys the process of that. And then I'll be putting the front wheel on, and then all that will be left to do is to fill the system with brake fluid and to bleed it. So let's do it. So it did come with the right banjo bolts. So here we've got 2 of them, and we've got 6 cross washers. We'll only be using 4. And then we've got 2 of those little rubber damper things. I don't know, I guess you could probably just like squeeze them over. Yeah, I don't know if I'll use those bolts. I've got the 2. I've got the bolt that came on the SV650 Caliper, and I've also, in my parts tray down there, I've got the one that came off of the master cylinder. So yeah, I don't think I will use those. They may be better. Are they rated to anything? No. I don't know, but we will be putting the curved end of this brake line up at the master cylinder, and the straight end is going to be going down at the caliper. Okay, I actually did use that bolt that came with the cable for this top one at the master cylinder, but I'm going to use the one that came on the caliper. Again, put a crush washer above and beneath, and the package says to torque it to 12 to 15 if it's aluminum, 15 to 17 if it's steel. I think this is steel. So I will torque it to 17, which will actually be 20 because I do not have a torque wrench that goes to 17. Now next I will be clamping the hose down right there at this piece right here. This little clip will go over like that, and this is a 10 mil bolt. All right, we've got the line going down to our rotor. My paint's mostly dry now. Should just take another 20 minutes or so, but got to the point where I will need to install my SV caliper. You take this, excuse me, take this mounting plate, and it goes on the back side of the fork. The original H6 bolts holding this in will go back, and then these 2 holes are where the caliper will mount, and it will mount behind the plate. I'm pretty sure it may mount in front of it. I'll check and let you guys know. We seem to have run into our first issue, first real job-stopping issue. I have gotten the Gen 3 caliper, and I think the SV650 Gen 3 I think that this mounting plate was made for a Gen 2 or 1 caliper, because there are some bolts that came with the mounting plate that do not fit right here. So that is going to require me to go out tomorrow and buy a drill bit that will drill through metal that is the same size as one of those bolts. And I will also need to find a tap and tap these two holes. That is a shame. I wanted to get done with this today, but it seems that is not in the cards. So I am going to take this bolt back off so it's not dangling overnight. And I hate to say it, but I think I'm gonna clean up right when I'm in the middle of everything. That sucks. Well, at least I got my forks painted and they look fantastic. I took my fork brace off so that I could paint them. I think I'm gonna throw that back on. What else? Do I see, this is like a crap Amazon lift. I think I may reinstall the front tire and just sort of like loosely put everything back on, and then let it down so that it can sit on the kickstand overnight. Yeah, and I'm gonna clean everything else up. So I think with that, I will most likely be seeing you tomorrow, unless I think of something else to say. Hello again. You joined me about a week later, maybe even longer than that. It's been a long time since that last shot. I figured out that in the last shot, I figured out that the Gen 3 caliper, the SV650 Gen 3, would not fit the bracket that I bought. And in that shot, I said that I would go and get like a tap and die set and try to drill out the holes in that Gen 3 SV650 caliper. But after sleeping on that decision, I was like, I don't know, I think like the thickness of the holes around the mounting, the thickness of the mounting holes is probably like pretty important, and so I did not want to go screwing around with drilling into a brake caliper without like really understanding the properties of the metal before doing that. So I decided I would buy a Gen 2 SV650 caliper, although this is not off of a Gen 2 SV650, it just is the same one. There are a number of vehicles, a number of motorcycles that this caliper comes with, and I emailed Eagle Mike, who I got the mounting plate from, the adapter. I emailed him and he sent me a list of motorcycles that the adapter that have this caliper, essentially a caliper that can fit with Eagle Mike's adapter. So I think I got this off of a a V-SRAM, I want to say, maybe like a DL1000. It was one of those, and I got it in the mail today, finally, after like a week of waiting. That was kind of crazy. I ordered it from Daytona Beach, which is just like a couple hours from me, and it took 6 days to get to me. But yeah, it was off of a 2006 vehicle, so it's decently old and pretty dirty. So I think I'm going to go through the same cleaning process. The pads do still look pretty good. They've got a good amount of life in them. So yeah, this caliper is actually what you're going to be dealing with if you are doing this specific job. So if you would like to do the same thing, the first step is to take out this little safety pin here with some needle nose pliers, and that is just sitting right there under this brake pad. You pull that out, and then this pin comes out, and then you're able to remove that brake pad. And then this one, I think this one is one where you like push the plate down and then probably angle it or something like that. I'll figure it out, but I'm going to take that out. I'm going to take my pistons out here and the seals. And I'm gonna be even more careful with the seals than I was last time, and with the pistons. I scratched up the pistons a little bit, so I'm gonna get a very thick piece of towel, or maybe even a inner tube, a piece of an inner tube, and just wrap it around this little piece of metal before yanking at it with pliers. Don't want to scratch it at all. And then yeah, so we're going to take everything out. We're going to spray some brake cleaner on it and get it put back together. Since you already generally know the process, I am going to be skipping most of the steps in here. So yeah, let's do it. Okay, I just got my pistons out. They look decent. Pretty decent, not too much rust, not as much as the last caliper that I cleaned. I did want to say that I was pulling on these, and I found that if I took one layer of this towel and then folded this shop towel in half and sort of like stacked them, sort of like that, and then I sort of like pinched the pliers on this side so it came out like this. That is the perfect amount of like towel between the pliers and the piston, so that when you pull on it, see, like I left some scratches on one of these. Yeah, see all those tiny little scratches? I don't know if that's like sort of catastrophic and means that I will have to buy some new pistons. I may anyway, but yeah, that amount of towel between the plier allowed me to pull as hard as I needed to on this second one without leaving any scratches. So I was able to like clamp down and really just yank on it, and it left a lot of scratches in the middle, but I don't think that that's quite as important as having a smooth outside. And then in the reference video that I'm watching, I think I talked about this briefly when I was cleaning the Gen 3 caliper, but there is a little, like if you run your finger on this seal right here, you should feel a lip on the bottom, and you should feel it get wider at the top. So there should be like a sharp lip, and then it should smoothen out. And that is to catch any brake fluid that is pushing the cylinder out. and just seal it. So I'm gonna pop these seals out like I did before, and then I will get some brake cleaner and make this thing look like it's new again. All right, I'm watching a pretty good reference video as far as rebuilding this specific caliper goes. I will link that in the description. Again, do not take my advice. I'm not a mechanic. Please watch other videos before you're gonna do this as well. This should just be entertainment-ish, you know. So next, I'm going to be taking a blue shop towel, spraying some brake fluid on it, and giving this thing a nice deep clean. And I'm gonna clean all these components too. There were a number of others that I had to take off. I had to take off this plate, this little plate here. I kept these O-rings in the order that they came out. Got my pistons. There's this rubber spring. It's that's the fill. I don't know what that screw's called. And then the one thing that I wanted to take off that I couldn't was this whole rubber piece from back here goes through this metal piece and comes out as this spring. I couldn't find a way to get this off, so I'm just gonna need to be careful and make sure not to get any brake cleaner on it because it could dry it out and make a crack. And then I also found out that there is like some lubricant on both of these posts. That is grease, that is not brake fluid. So just make sure that that grease stays on there. I may actually dab a little bit more on before I put this back, but yeah, I'm gonna clean this plate, I'm gonna clean this plate. I'll probably clean the back of these pads too. Just get everything nice and clean. All right, let's do it. Okay, I have gotten this pretty clean. I think about as clean as I'm gonna get it. There's still some little crud left in the seals, but I don't think it's too bad. It wasn't really, it didn't feel too coarse or anything, so I think it'll be all right. I am going to get a little bit of grease and just put it around this little thing right here, and then I'll put it on both of those posts, and then I will start to reassemble everything. And yeah, I was able to get my pistons pretty clean, and I think this one is okay as far as the scoring on it goes. It's not too bad. And thankfully, I've still got one piston that is perfectly smooth. So I'm gonna keep an eye on my brake fluid level over the next month as I'm using this for the first time, and make sure that none is leaking out of the piston right there. All right, let's get this all back together. I forgot to mention that when I go to put these seals back in and those pistons, I will be coating them in brake fluid. Not brake cleaner, brake fluid. And then I'll be throwing the seals back in there and then pushing the pistons all the way back down. All right, let's do it. Okay, and I've got everything back together. I've got my pads on there. I've got the little pin back in place. I don't remember if I showed that when I was taking the brake apart, but there's just a little pin right there. I got it out with some needle nose pliers. I'm gonna put it back and put it back with some needle nose. And then the guy in the reference video that I'm watching said that because this pin is just like so small and dinky, and it's the only thing holding this pin in that goes through your pads. And I've seen this in a couple of the videos that I've watched actually, of people like losing that pin when they're out on the trail. And so the guy in the video that I watched took some silicone. I've got gasket sealer here, and just put it on the side of the pin there. I'll show you it after I do mine. Another guy in another video used safety wire. I'm not quite sure how he used that safety wire, but I liked that silicone option, so I'm going to do that real quick and show you how it looks. And just like that, I threw a tiny bit of gasket sealer on there, and that should just harden into a soft sort of rubber, and then it'll just hold this little pin in, even if that tiny little clip falls out. Okay, so I've got another clean caliper. Now I will find the bolts that will be used to connect it on there, take it outside, and we will bleed the front brake system. And I think that will be the end of the job. Crazy. Hello again. You joined me about a week and a half later, maybe a week later. I've been doing small work on each of these individual jobs inside my room, but it's been a while since I've been outside. I don't know exactly where I'm at with each of these jobs. And I'm pretty disorganized in general right now. I think I bit off a little bit more than I could chew with all 5 of these jobs going. I've got the brakes, I've still got to install the caliper. I just got the caliper in the mail, a new caliper. I think I shot a video rebuilding it, so you'll already know about that. I think I'm gonna put this clip in each of the 5 videos just to catch y'all up, but I want to bleed my brakes. I've still got to put fluid in the front brake system, but I also want to bleed my rear brakes. I might shoot a separate video for that. I've got a lot of stuff to do today, a lot of different things, and I've got so many individual clips on my phone from all 5 of these jobs. It's gonna be a nightmare editing this. It's gonna be a nightmare figuring out what exactly I need where, making sure that I didn't forget anything. My parts tray is a nightmare. I don't remember where all the bolts go. It's rough. It's about 1:30, I think, maybe 2 o'clock. I think we're gonna be out here until the sun sets, and maybe later than that. I hope not, but I think I'm gonna get started with my exhaust, since that will just be a simple little bolt on. Let's get it done. All right. Onward. Greetings, folks. You joined me a few days later, a few days after I cleaned this caliper up. I've got my adapter, I've got the bolts for it, I've got the bolts for the old caliper, and we've got this Gen 3 caliper on here that I will need to remove with this banjo bolt. Now, I tightened this down pretty tight when I was last out here working on this caliper, so it might take some elbow grease to get that out. But we're getting that out. We are putting the banjo bolt and the 2 crush washers on right here. And then I've got my pads. I am going to be placing this adapter behind these holes, I think, and then hooking this caliper up right there, so it'll be over the adapter, and then it should slot right into that disc. That is a big disc. I was, as pretty close to Big Dick. But I was walking over from over there a little bit ago when my bike was uncovered, and I just saw the glint on the other side of this disc, and it looks sharp. Oh my goodness, it's massive, and it'll stop me. But yeah, so I'll be doing that. I'm gonna get some orange thread locker on them. I finally bought some legit thread locker, not the red stuff that's gonna like freeze my bolts into where they're at. Got some orange thread locker, gonna be putting it on all of these bolts, I think, other than the banjo bolt. That'll be as is, and then I'll get to bleeding the brakes, I think. Also, okay, a number of things have happened in the last couple weeks that I wanted to include in this video. When I figured out that that was wrong and that that one was right, I emailed Eagle Mike and asked him, and listen, I might have brought this up inside when I was cleaning up that caliper. I don't remember very much. I've got like 5 different videos going on right now, and so it's all jumbled up. I could go back and rewatch my clips from over that period, but don't want to do it. So anyways, I emailed Eagle Mike, asked him which calipers or which bikes that this adapter would be compatible with, and he sent me a list of bikes that come with this specific caliper. They're all Suzuki's. I will include the list in a screenshot right here, and as you can see, there are a number of different bikes, all ranging from old to new. So you've got a number of different options that you can search for on eBay for a cheap and still good condition caliper. Was there anything else? There was. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that I did not think that the steel braided brake line would improve braking at all. I was wrong about that. So I've been looking at some Dave Moss tuning videos. I'll include his channel in the description. It is superb as far as motorcycle information goes. I'll actually be referencing a couple of his videos in this one. Anyway, steel braided brake line, it does not expand as rubber does. So when you lay on the brakes and you've got a rubber brake line, when you lay on the brakes, that rubber will expand just a little bit, but that is some force that is not being transferred directly to the caliper. It is being used to expand the rubber hose. So with the steel brake line, you do not get that expansion, and more of the force goes directly into the caliper. So that was pretty neat. Again, a link to that line will be in the description. I think I bought mine off of Eagle Mike's website as well. So yeah, let's get this off, let's get this on, and let's get some brake fluid in this baby. And you know what else? I had my bike jacked up last time I was working on the brakes, and my front wheel isn't totally on, the speedometer isn't on, so I'm gonna need to take the axle off before this job is over, and so that means that I will need to jack my bike up again. So I'm gonna run inside, grab my motorcycle jack, come back out here, get this bike jacked up, and continue. All right, we've got the bike jacked up, took my wheel off, and now I'm going to install the adapter. Let's do it. I got it installed. These are 14s, these are H6s, and there was a little note that I wanted to make. There are a couple washers that came with these bolts. There was a big one, 2 big ones, and 2 smaller ones. The smaller ones will go between the bolt and the plate, and then the bigger ones will go between the caliper and the plate. And they go around a little indentation, sort of elevated area, and that just sort of flattens out the pressure across it. So one small note, and then I don't know, this, if you look at that, that's not a lot of room for the disc. And when I rebuilt this caliper, the pistons I pushed all the way in, so I'm assuming they will come out a little bit, and I'm hoping there's going to be enough room between these plates and the disc. There's not a lot of tolerance, but we'll see. We'll see. Next, what am I doing? What am I doing next? I'm gonna wait to put thread locker on these until I've got everything installed, including the wheel. I put a little bit more silicone on this just to make sure that it won't fall out. And I think the next step will be installing the wheel. Getting this little caliper off, or caterpillar off there. The caterpillar's gonna be my caliper. All right, let's do it. Just installed the axle and the wheel, and it spins freely. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that, but it does clear the plate by a good margin. And I think I was correct in that the pistons just need to come this way a little bit, and then it should be effective. Yeah, I've not torqued this. I'm gonna figure out what socket this takes, torque it down, get a cotter pin through it, and then I think I'm going to tighten down all the bolts here. Actually no, I'm going to bleed the brakes first, because Dave Moss talked about an interesting thing where when you apply the brakes, the caliper is loose. The caliper centers itself when the brakes are applied, and so you want to tighten down the bolts as you're squeezing the brakes. So I'm going to need to get this steel pipe fitted in here, and then I will get some brake fluid in the system, get it bled, and then I will come back and tighten down all of these and get some thread locker on each of them. And I think these bolts get tightened down to 18 foot-pounds or 16 foot-pounds. I wonder if these are the same. I'll probably just do the same for those with some thread locker, and I think that would be the end of my brake job. So that's awesome. Yeah, let's get these brakes bled. To bleed my brakes, I have got CarQuest.4. I'm not really endorsing the brand, just .4 fluid is important. Stands up to heat pretty well. And to bleed our brakes, we are just going to pour. Make sure that you're careful about getting this on any painted parts. I might throw down a piece of paper towel. Yeah, brake fluid is pretty antagonistic against paint, so I'm gonna keep this paper towel here and just fill up this reservoir, and then we will begin bleeding. And the reservoir doesn't have to be totally full, and there's no exact measurement as you're bleeding. It's just enough to get fluid into the line. And as we bleed, the level in this reservoir is going to reduce and reduce as more fluid gets into the line. So you always just want to keep it topped off. You don't want to get down to where there is no fluid in here and then you're just pumping air through the system. That is not desirable at all. So we are going to keep an eye on that level, and what we're going to do is we are going to press the brake levers, opening the channel in there, letting some fluid go through, and then we are going to hold down the brake lever, and as the brake lever is being held down, we are going to loosen this screw right here and let out some air and or fluid, and then we will tighten it back down as the brake lever is still being held. And then after it's tight, you let go of the brake lever, press it a few more times, keep it held down, loosen, tighten, release, pump it, squeeze, loosen, tighten, release, pump it, and repeat. So that's what I'm going to be doing. All right, so I just finished tidying up my wires. Got them all running along there down to a good ground. Before I clean up for the day and head inside, I'm just gonna torque down my castle nut on my axle here so I don't have to worry about it. Get a cotter pin through there. I don't remember what the torque is, so I'm gonna look that up real quick and I'll let you know. All right, this castle nut was a 22 mil. The other side of the axle was a 17. Got a cotter pin in there, torqued the castle nut down to 59 foot-pounds, and that's that. So tomorrow I'm gonna be coming back out here. I need some water, and I'm going to be finishing with these brakes. I'm gonna get all the plastics back on, tank back on. Should I do that tonight? Maybe I'll do that tonight, maybe I won't. I don't know. Probably not. I'm gonna clean up, get inside. I'm tired. So, yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, it is the next day. I'm back outside, and I am back to bleeding these brakes. It was taking a long time yesterday. I think I was probably trying to bleed them for an hour, maybe an hour and a half or so. And yeah, it was just taking a long time. I gotta get all new fluid through all this. So I was looking up other options as far as bleeding techniques went, and I saw a very interesting one that utilizes a syringe. And I want to say it was from Motorcyclist Magazine or Revzilla, one of those. The original video that I looked at will be in the description. But yeah, they used a syringe. They filled it up with brake fluid, stuck it over that little screw, and just slowly filled up the entire system from the bottom. All the fluid went up the line and then eventually came out the master cylinder up at the top. So yeah, apparently that's only supposed to take a few minutes, whereas my method would take a long time for a totally new system. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And then after that's done, I will be tightening up all those bolts, making sure that the caliper is aligned with the disc, and that will be the end of the job, other than breaking in the brakes. And I think I probably will record a video of myself breaking them in, just to give you guys an example. I'm also going to record a separate video only about brake bleeding for my rear brake. I'll probably try using the same method, see if it works for that as well. But yeah, that's that. Let's get to it. Okay, I've got my syringe full of .4 liquid. I've got the air sort of pushed up top. Now I'm gonna stick it on that and start pushing. I'm gonna stick it on that, I think I may zip tie it onto there just so it doesn't come undone, and then I will loosen the bolt and start very slowly squeezing this fluid in there. And then I will stand up and make sure that it starts coming out the top after a little while. Okay, so it's very hard to tell whether I am actually pumping fluid in there because it's going so slow, but I did just check my master cylinder and some of the, I'm guessing this is some of the liquid that I bled through yesterday just from the brake line. And yeah, it's gone up to the master cylinder. This was empty when I started. So it's doing its job. Let's keep going. And that is a full brake reservoir. I'm pretty sure I have a full brake system now. I think at this point I am going to see if bleeding the brakes with the normal method does anything more, like if there's any more bubbles in the system. So I'll do that a few times, and if it's running clean, then I think I'll be done with this front brake job. After tightening these bolts, of course. Okay, right now I'm in the middle of just regularly bleeding my brakes. I've got the excess fluid just pouring back into that syringe right there. And I still am not getting too much pressure in the brakes, but I'm definitely getting a little bit more than I was yesterday. And I'm getting a little bit more by the minute, so I'm just going to keep going. I think the majority of the system is filled up. It's just a matter of pushing out the pistons in my caliper now. So going to keep going. I'm guessing it'll probably take me another 30 minutes to an hour or so. Let's keep doing it. All right, so I've been out here about 10 or 15 more minutes, and if you look at that, the brake pad being pushed by the pistons is in contact with the disc, and it's going to be really hard to get a good angle for it, but I was able to see my pistons in the caliper, and they're doing their job. So I may actually be done with bleeding the brakes. I'm going to fill up my reservoir a little bit, put the cap back on, and then wheel this thing around and see how well the front brakes work. If they're pretty weak, then I'll keep going. But yeah, let's see. The brakes are working decently well. I don't think it's as powerful as it can be. I have to get pretty much like right here before the front brake really starts doing something. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten those bolts, get the caliper lined up, and then I'll bleed it for another 20 or 30 minutes or so and see if I can get any more power out of that braking system. So yeah, in order to get the caliper lined up properly, I'm going to press in the brake as hard as I can, and then I will go ahead and tighten all those down to torque. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna tighten them down as much as I can with the brake held down, and then I'll take my torque wrench and go through and torque each of them, because it's gonna be a little tough to torque and hold the brake down at the same time. I might be able to do it. Yeah, I'll try it with the torque wrench first, and then if I can't manage that, then I'll figure out how I'm gonna do it. But yep, gonna hold the brake down, tighten all those down, and then get to it. And I think these are getting torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. I'm gonna double check, but I think that's it. Okay, I have removed each of these, put orange thread locker on them. I put a good amount of thread locker on both of the bolts holding the caliper itself on. torqued them all down to 18 foot-pounds. The bolts were 14 mil. The original bolts were H6s. So now I'm gonna get back to bleeding and try to get some more pressure into the system. All right, I went through and I continued to bleed these brakes normally by doing the pump method for about 30 more minutes, and I do feel a decent amount of pressure in these brakes, so I think I'm about good. I may be able to get some more pressure into the system, but I think what I'm gonna end up doing is taking my bike on a little ride, not going too fast, only staying on like 20-mile-per-hour roads and stuff, and just testing out these brakes as tough as they can be tested. And then if I need to come back and continue bleeding, then I'll just do that. But yeah, I think that is the end of my brake job. Crazy. I started this, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Crazy, I've not ridden my bike since that day. I kind of want to go on a road trip tonight over to St. Augustine. I feel like that'd be very fun, although I'm a little bit wary about taking my new brakes on a fast road, so I'll make sure that I'm safe before I do something like that. And that is my bike all back together. And I think this will be the outro for both my plastics video and my brake video. The brake cable was pretty long. It's got a lot of slack. It curves quite a bit. I don't really like that, but I might try to find a way to tighten that up a little bit somehow. But it's okay for now. Able to move my handlebars both directions. That slams into the windshield a little bit, unfortunately. But as I said in my plastics video, I'm pretty soon gonna be trying to fabricate my own Dakar fairing, so that won't be an issue anymore. But yeah, look at these new plastics. Look at that line coming up. That's what I was picturing. It's the line from the side fenders. It goes right there and then goes right up to that brake light. It didn't come out as cool as I thought it was going to, but I still prefer it way much. Still prefer it a bunch over the stock fender. And my brakes work. They could definitely use a little bit more bleeding though, I think. I'm able to go down to the edge of it pretty easily. Maybe I did move the position of this a little bit, and it does seem to be hitting up on the throttle body right there, so I think maybe I'll loosen these bolts and move it a little bit further to the side right there. Try to get it to clear this, but yeah, that's the bike. New plastics, renewed plastics. I prefer it without this sticker here. Pretty soon I'm gonna be painting my bike chrome. I feel like that'd look both cool and funny. I'd also like to paint most of the internals black, that same color as the forks right there. Love how those came out. Is there anything else though? Anything else? I don't know, maybe I'll do a before and after of the plastics. And I think that's about it. I took the panniers off just for the shoot of those plastics. Gonna put those back on. Gonna put my top box back on pretty soon, and I'm gonna start doing some road tripping, I think. That would be amazing. I'd love to go to Savannah, Georgia. I'd love to go to North Carolina. Love to do the Tail of the Dragon in Tennessee. And I'm planning on bringing you guys along for each of those. I'm planning on doing some travel videos. Should be amazing. Okay, so this is after I shot my outro video. It's a little darker, but I wanted to show you guys something and tell you a little bit more information. Just wanted to show you the walk up to my bike. This thing is starting to look genuinely different than when I got it. Starting to look like my own thing. I love it. Love that huge disc. And it looks really good from the back. Don't mind my license plate there. But I love that open look. Look at that, it's just blank. And it's all sort of low profile. Oh, I love it. And then I also wanted to say that I am going to be taking this bike out in an hour or so and breaking in the brakes. So I have not yet broken in my rear brake pads since I put those on. I haven't really ridden it since then, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, most unfortunately. But I'm gonna be doing both the rear and the front brakes. And what that is gonna consist of is 5 to 10 hard brakes. So I'll go up to 25 or 30 miles an hour and then just like yank on the brakes. Try to get them heated up and then let them cool down a little bit and then repeat. So yep, I'm gonna be breaking them in, and that should be that. I'll put this before the outro, and here it should go. Whew. But with that, about 2 weeks worth of work. Not every day, a number of those days were either waiting for parts or just being overwhelmed. But we got it done. We got new brakes, we got new plastics, new wires, new hoses, panniers. It's amazing. It's amazing. So thank you for watching if you watched, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye, people.